Hi everybody, Todd Dammit Kerns here, one more time. Today brought to you by Hercules Guitar Stands, the best, the only ones I use. Today, I'm honored to have a legend among us. He has played with, obviously, Guns N' Roses. I used to love his old band, Kill for Thrills. He's been in a bunch of different things. I've been following him way before he was in Guns N' Roses. I love his solo stuff. I love him as a dude. I love him as a guitar player. He's a legend, ladies and gentlemen, from Guns N' Roses and beyond, Gilby Clarke. We're missing great content. We got the good stuff out of the way. Now we can just talk shit. So you never played the Starwood though. Was the one place that got away.
Yeah, we just missed it. I mean, we had our band at that time, but yeah, we just missed the Starwood.
Which band was that?
Candy, my first
right.
band. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you saw Motley's first show?
Yeah, I saw Motley's first show. That's why I actually saw Motley's last show, which now I guess is not official, but it was important to me that I saw their last show because I told Nicky I saw the first one, I saw the last one. So
that's really cool, man. Like I don't know if I've ever talked to anybody who's seen like their first show. Did it seem promising at the time, or did you think?
No, they were great. What people didn't realize is, Nicky came from a very popular local band, London. London was a headlining band.
Big Starwood band, right?
Everybody wanted to see what he was doing because we thought it would be more like London, but it wasn't. It was heavier, much heavier. London was kind of on the pop side,
Right.
And so everybody just wanted to see Nicky's new band. I mean, nobody really knew anybody else in the band. So
interesting.
I didn't. I talked to Nicky actually. I mean, I knew him back then. Before Motley and stuff, he worked at Gil Turner's, and I used to, I lived right down the street, so I used to
of course,
pop in and see him all the time.
That's so funny, yeah, because it's like London's one of those bands. It's funny that we're talking about this, but it's kind of interesting that London's one of those bands that everybody knew that name, but it was more based upon like who came out of that band, like Blackie Lawless and guys like that. And it's sort of like, but they were a star with like.
They're a star band. Yeah. And they were, like I said, they were a big band. They were, for us in Hollywood at that time, you did all the hype by posters. You'd have posters around town. And then you saw this band that looked like the perfect combination of, like the New York Dolls, like an updated version. And, all of us at that time were into that stuff. So when we saw that, we're like, oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to remember how good they were. I mean, at that time, I thought they were incredible. They had an English singer. I mean, they sounded great to me. I mean, everybody sounded great to me back then, but
of course, yeah.
There were so many good local bands. It was insane. I talked with George Lynch about this all the time because he was in bands during that period. I go, there was a band called Smile that never got a deal that I thought blew everybody away. I mean,
really?
They had great songs. They had a great singer, great musicians, but they never got signed to a label.
But that's true in every scene, isn't it? It often feels like there's bands that come along and kind of kick doors open so that everybody else kind of swarms through. And
that's true. Actually,
now that the door's open, it's like now all
there
these.
We go. Yeah, you're not really getting the A teams. You're kind of getting the B and the D teams.
Or maybe like some sort of younger, newer version of it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny how that happens. No, it's funny because did you grow up? Where did you grow up exactly?
All right, so I was born and raised in Cleveland. Okay,
that's what
but I moved to Los Angeles in '77, not as like a kid with dreams. My family moved. I was I was a bad kid in Ohio, and it's like my mother's like, we need to change the scenery. So
California's the place. That seems to have a lot more trouble in California.
We had family in California, so my parents had just gotten divorced, so it seemed like a natural progression to move out there. Cool. But I actually drove with my grandmother from Cleveland to LA, and that summer I saw Kiss in Cleveland, and then when I got to LA, I also saw Kiss in LA. I saw them at the Forum. But cool. I missed Zeppelin in Cleveland, and I missed Zeppelin at LA, and I never saw Zeppelin.
Ouch. That's a tough one, man.
And I was a huge Zeppelin fan. I had a lot of friends back then that if you like Kiss, you couldn't like Zeppelin and, all those wars. But I was like, I like Kiss. I like Zeppelin. I like Alice Cooper. I like it all.
It seems ridiculous to me now because it's sort of like, it's like these are all different restaurants and I like all this food. And they don't seem that vastly different to like teenagers and kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, remember how kids always were. Bands were, special to them. They held them closely. You can't like them if I like them. I
Yeah,
found that
that's
band.
true,
That's
yeah.
my band,
That was certainly within like punk rock and classic rock, or I guess it wasn't called classic rock band. It's probably just called rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the punk rock, my punk rock friends and my rock friends were sort of like, and I was always in the middle going like, but I can like the Stooges and like,
Yeah.
Trick or whatever. To me, it's all the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because back in the LA days, when we, because I was one of those kids too, I like to see the Germs, and I liked all the band, the Plasmatics. I saw it the Whiskey many times.
Totally.
But if it was punk rock night on the Strip, you can't have long hair, man. You got your ass kicked.
Is that right?
Days. Yeah, that was a difference. If you had long hair, you were a rocker. If you had short hair, you were a punk rocker.
Right.
But I always had long hair, but I liked the punk rock gigs. And it's funny because when I would go to the shows, I would literally put my hair in a ponytail and wear a baseball cap. And I look over in the corner and there was Izzy. There was literally like about 4 of us that would go to the rock shows and the punk rock shows.
Yeah.
But it was dangerous. Like I said, and same thing. If you're a punk rocker walking down the street on a rock night, you got your ass kicked.
That's so great. The tribalism it exists. It's been long before and long after. That's the thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Now the lines are blurred, so it doesn't matter. But back then it mattered.
But that's what's interesting about your career, because I think it's really interesting when I look back at like, early photos of you and everything. There's such a straight line in a way. Like I mean that in a complete compliment, that you didn't seem to kind of have like, I don't know. I never really see you with like a pink Jackson V, up here, and then all of a sudden you always seem to have it kind of like you kind of knew what you wanted to do, and you seem to have stayed there to this day. I think that you seem to like. Well, again, you look amazing. You, for your age, you still look like the same guy from those photos.
Thank you, Todd. But no, I mean that's true. I mean, integrity is a strange thing, and I when you're young, you don't think about things like that. But I guess it's in your mind. It's just not out in the forefront and stuff. But I mean, I definitely knew back then, like even in Candy, like if you see earlier pictures of Candy where we look like the Ramones, and then you see later when, even though we had a major label record deal, bands like Poison, and Warren, all those bands were getting signed. I mean, we updated our look a little, but for me, my hair never went up. it just kind of got longer or whatever. But
right.
Yeah, I was never that guy. I always kind of wanted to, like I said, just, be who you are, and just, try to do the best you can. And as we all know, you're going to have some years where it's not so good and some years that it is good. But I always say, when people ask me, how do you play with Nancy Sinatra, the MC5, G&R, Heart? I go, it's funny, same Les Paul, same Marshall. I'm really not that different.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that there's something, you work in all those equations to me. Like, I don't go like, what? Like, to me, I go, yeah, absolutely. That all makes sense to me. So were you always
people
like,
that just know GNR, me from GNR, they go, what? They don't get it.
Sure. Yeah. Because even to those people, I think that they think that's like this hard rock thing, and you only do that. But that's that we know as musicians and as friends, it's you can have a dialogue that's the Beatles and can be all these things that is so much more diverse than just being a one-trick pony. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, whenever you talk to most musicians that are successful, like I said, they do like the Beatles, they do like the Stones, they do like Metallica, Motorhead. They really have a big wide array of music that they like.
It would be weird to be like, I only like this, like that to me, like to show up for dinner every night and have exactly the same meal just seems like really weird to me. But I assume you had found like, because there's always something sort of more classic about your thing. Like, I don't know, Stones, Keith Richards-y, like you always have a cool, like that's the one thing about, I loved watching back in the day when it'd be like every guitar you pulled out, I was like, damn, dude, a Zematis and a bitch and Telly and the Les Pauls, it was always like always exactly the right guitars. There's never that kind of like, that's a shame, kind of bring out that one weird one where you're like, well, why is that? You had great taste in guitars, great taste in tone, Voxes and Marshalls and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's always been that way from what I can tell.
No, it has been, like I said, even from the earliest days. I mean, I think that with all of us, we're influenced by the people we're influenced by, I mean, I remember like when I first moved to LA, all my friends were talking about, you got to see this new guitar player, Eddie Van Halen. He'll blow your mind. You've never seen anything like it. Yeah. And I would go, he's no Rick Derringer.
Wow, those are blasphemous words, I'm sure.
I
Yeah.
know.
But
I
you're
mean,
right.
that's who I like. Like I liked Rick
Course, yeah.
Derringer during
Of
that
course.
period and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I liked Mick Jones. I like Mick Ronson, you know, and
Yeah.
stuff. So it is the guys that are around you. I mean, you know, I think we're all kind of the same. Like I said, you know, you see Joe Perry play a clear Dan Armstrong. You're like, I always wanted one of those.
100%.
But what's funny about the Zemetis is it took me almost 10 years to find out what that guitar was.
Right.
That was before we had the internet and all that stuff. And I would ask around everyone, what is that guitar that Ron Wood has? What is that guitar? And I don't think it was until the Pretenders, when James Honeyman Scott had one also, that I actually, somebody goes, oh, it's a Zemetis. It's this guy in England. And it was the first thing I did when I got the GNR gig was I called him and I said, I need a guitar. And he 100%. Goes, well, when you show up at the door and we sit down and have a conversation, he goes, I'll make you one. And I literally had to sit down with him, have tea with him and his wife and talk. And then we went out in the workshop and, you know, we made my first one.
Wow. It's that personal. I had no idea.
Yeah. Back then it was. Like I said, if you look at his list of people, I mean, look, there's always guys like a famous race car driver that got one or whatever, but it was a handful of guys, you know, I mean, he told me there are a lot of guys who called him and he said, no. You know,
really?
Yeah. He was a strange guy about that. He, you know, I don't know what it was. Yeah, I really don't know. But I know when we were designing mine, he has these templates, and I actually signed my name and my template right under Ron Wood.
Wow.
Literally, it was like Ron Wood, 1981, Gilby Clarke, 1991.
Wow.
Yeah.
The cool thing about that is, I mean, clearly that cup of tea was very important to this actually happening. It sounds like. It seems like if that tea had gone the wrong way for Tony, it'd be like, thank you for your time, Gilby.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If I didn't know who Elmore James was, that would have gone the wrong way, let me tell you.
There's a little test involved. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. No, it's one of the interesting things about you is that you, like I say, it's like when I never really think, there's very few guys I could think of who've been able to kind of like, they found their thing and it's expanded upon as you go along. But I was so much like you in the way that the Rick Nielsen's and the Johnny Thunders and the Keith Richards, and those were my guys. You know, Johnny Ramone, you know, to me said more in those three chords than a lot of guys say.
Thank you. Can't agree with you more.
All day long. And although I loved a lot of hard rock, I never learned guitar or bass or any of that kind of stuff with the intention of, you know, being that guy, like those strip guys, like the George Lynch's, the Eddie Van Halen's, the Warren DeMartini's. Those guys, it's silly to say.
Of course, we appreciate them.
Of course, yeah. They're it's like it just wasn't what I wanted to do. You know, I mean, like
I feel the same way, because some people can look at it like, oh, you didn't have the ability. Again, it's not really that. It's just not what it. Like I said, it wasn't what I wanted. Like I said, I liked Mick Ronson. You know, That's what I wanted. Like I like that. I like that sound. Like even Johnny Thunders, for his limitations, I like what he did with that music. He made 100%. That music original.
Yeah, I did not have the abilities. I'll admit that wholeheartedly. But I was, you know, as a kid, it was Ace Frehley and Angus Young.
Same
like
here.
I like those kind of guitar solos that kind of like I can hum along, I can sing them. And again, like I'm not going to, you know, even David Gilmour. Like I mean, you can talk about that all day long too.
He'll play one note, but it's the right note.
It's the right note, yeah. And we can all sort of learn that, but just. Yeah, there's something else going on there, but I'm very much like you in that way. So how does that work when you're doing Candy, Kills for Thrills, those kind of bands within that framework of the Sunset Strip, which is that thing, and it is lots of blonde hair and the spandex, and you know, I wasn't there, but I mean the world was there as far as like that. As that exploded, you guys seemed like what I always kind of refer to more of a New York thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's that dark hair and dark kind of thing that just struck me as more, sure, there's glitter rock, we used to call it, before glam rock. It was more like Bowie and New York Dolls type glam, not Sunset Strip glam. So how does that work within, did you guys
with
feel
Candy, we never felt like we fit in the scene, really. Even though we played with Rat and all those bands, we never really felt, like we were competing with them. You know, we were different. We were really different. I mean, you know, all our shows were sold out. They were packed. You know, we doing well. We got 2 major label record deals in like a 2-year period. Yeah. We were fine. Like, it's like we were in our own world. It's, if anything, I think they were looking at us going, wait, what's going on over there? You know, like I said, they don't have the shredding. They don't have this, but there's 300 girls at their show. And like I said, we were going for something different. It's like all of us look, we all liked lots of different bands, but we had this pop thing. Like
Yeah.
we all like pop. Like I said, I love pop. I always wanted to figure out a way to have loud guitars in a pop band. That was like
Totally.
my goal. And I don't think it was ever achieved until Urge Overkill, to be honest. No.
Dude, one of my all-time favorite bands. 100% underrated. Yeah.
What a great record. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like that was kind of like what we were trying to achieve. You know, we
Yeah.
had this like Ramones look, but we didn't, you know, so we didn't sound like that, you know. So
Right.
that's it, is we knew what we were. And of course we were trying to grow too. It's like we got to a point later where I became the singer and we brought in Ryan Roxy as a guitar player
Right.
because we did have to change a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when I left and I started Kill for Thrills,
Yeah.
I actually stayed singing, playing guitar, and we got a guitar player because I did kind of feel like we did need to get a little heavier and a little more than what I was doing. It's like, it kind of felt like the scene outgrew what I was doing guitar wise. Like
Right.
Candy, it worked fine. It didn't really work in Kill for Thrills, you know, and stuff. So, you know, you have to, you know, realize what your limitations are too and kind of make it work. Like, for instance, in the 90s, there are no guitar solos.
No, I know.
Suddenly, it just went away.
Suddenly, Johnny Ramone was way ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I mean, I agree with you. I never really wanted to be a George Lynch or you know, a Warm Deal. Like I said, I appreciate what they do, but I never sat there and go, wow, I want to learn how to do that. Just wasn't in me.
Well, and it's one of those things too. I think that, you know, it's kind of silly to think like when we talk about the Sunset Strip thing as if, because to me, when you talk about Rowdy, you talk about Motley Crue, you talk about Dokken, these are all really different flavors.
Very, yes.
So in reality, sure, there's elements, you know, and the fashion at the time and whatnot, but the fact that you guys, which I think is a tribute to you all the way through, is the fact that you decided we're going to stick to what we do. There wasn't some sort of like, you know, well, or you resisted that, you know, A&R guy tapping on your shoulder saying, if you bleach your hair and, you know, or whatever it is. And, but you said, well, we're going to do what we do and build our own audience that way. Yeah.
I think some people also get lucky because look, we've been in those conversations, and for me, it's like we just weeded those guys out, you know. But I mean, I was on a label when I did my first solo record. When it came to the second one, they were telling me, maybe it's time to start listening to what's going on around you and stuff. Like, they let me make the first record any way I wanted, but the climate had changed so much by the time to make the second that I did have to have that conversation, and I had to make that decision. You know, do I do this or do I not do this? And I actually decided not to do it.
Are you talking about the 90s at this point?
This is 90s. Yeah, we're probably this, like right after Slash the Snake Pit is when I went to make my second one. And I just felt like, I thought about it long, you know, because look, major label deals aren't easy to get, you know, and I had one, and I thought about it, and I just go, you know what? You might as well ask me to play jazz. You know, it's so far removed from what I do. And I just feel, it just didn't feel right. And sometimes you do have to go with your gut, you know?
Yeah. Well, it would be really silly to suddenly have, you know, we all went through it because we all came up when we were younger, came up in rock, and we thought, you know, I was always that guy. Joey Ramone has long hair. I'm gonna have long hair. You know, I was like, I didn't really think anything that the Dolls had long hair. The MC5 have long hair.
Yep.
You know, when they really started to make that division between this is a punk rock haircut and that's a rock, you know, where a lot of my favorite bands are the ones that kind of somehow live in the middle there. Like Cheap Trick to me always felt like there's just enough of punk and pop and rock in there to, which is perfect for me.
That's why they're the perfect band.
they always have been. Yeah. But, you know, it's just the ability to kind of like stay true to yourself, especially in the 90s, because you bring up an interesting point, and I lived through it too, because by the time I became more visible in my career in Canada, we had already reached this 90s point. So those changes happen before you become visible, and it becomes like, I remember you when you were this, you know, and you go, well, it doesn't matter now because we weren't a major signed act at the time. But when guys like you who, and the funny thing about knowing you is that in a lot of ways, what you were doing the whole time would have probably seamlessly worked perfectly into Pawn Shop Guitars is a perfect 90s album in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And I also thought my band Kill for Thrills, it really wasn't that far off from a lot of that 90s stuff. I mean, if you look at the pictures, we didn't look like Warrant and those bands of that time. We really didn't, you know? So, yeah, I mean, you know, I think everybody was so confused in those couple years there. And,
Yeah.
you know, even the bands that were leading the way, I don't really know if they made a conscious decision to lead the way. They're just doing what they did and what they liked, you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, there was a lot of chasing the tail going on at that time. And I'm not going to lie, you know, there was some lean times during, you know, those mid 90s and stuff and
Yeah.
late 90s where a lot of us were questioning because we couldn't fill a club anymore. You know, it's like people wanted to separate themselves with guys like me and things like that. So it was difficult. Don't get me wrong. It was hard.
Right. But it's a weird cross for you to bear because you sort of took a gig, you know what I mean? It's like, that, you know, if you had never taken that gig, I mean, it's obviously the best problem to have being affiliated with that gig. That's got to be a thing too. Cause I was actually thinking about it when you're like, you know, you're doing your thing, the Hollywood thing, you're playing clubs, you're doing your thing. And then suddenly you find yourself fast forward playing, you know, wild horses in front of like tens of thousands of people by yourself or with Slash or whatever. I'm just thinking to myself, man, that must have been like, when the first time you did that, it must have been like, this is super surreal. Because I think you probably were so comfortable on stage by that point. It wasn't necessarily a thing about nervous, but just the idea of like the surreality of just sitting there playing a song you've played 1,000 times in your life. And you're like, now, okay, Gilby Clarke, take a solo. And you just play that song. And the whole audience is singing along. You go, wow, that must have been so surreal.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, it's strange because I do get asked that question, like, what is it like from this to that? But my reality was, you know, I had 2 weeks from the day that Slash asked me to audition to the day I was on stage with them. Wow. And I had to learn 50 songs. And most of them I never even heard before because they were on a record that wasn't out yet.
Oh yeah.
So all I cared about was not hitting the wrong chord at the wrong time and getting that look that you've probably seen every now and then. You know, I mean that all I cared about really was the guys. That's all I cared about. It was I didn't want to be the guy on stage hitting the wrong chord. I also didn't want to be the guy on stage that had notebooks of cheat notes and shit.
Right.
It's like I want to walk out on stage and know the songs like Izzy did. You know, I don't want to have any cheat sheets or anything. I want to be able to play it. So all that other stuff, I wasn't even paying attention. I just cared about playing the songs and stuff. You know, I mean, there's so many other things like, you know, I've only jammed with the guys a couple of times. Like, what do you wear on stage? How long is the set? What happens? Like they kept saying there is no set list. You know, there's this, and I'm like going, how the fuck did you guys survive all these years? How? It's like everything is just like, yeah, don't worry about it. It'll work itself out. And like even like the solo section, I mean, I've said this a couple of times before, but I didn't know I had a solo section until that afternoon. Slash came up to me, goes, "Hey, what are you gonna do for your solo section?" And I'm like, "What? What the fuck? What? I'm gonna go play guitar while Slash is about to do his 20-minute guitar. That's stupid, you know?"
Yeah, right.
And so he told me, he goes, "Izzy used to do this thing," and I came up with the Wild Horses thing, and it grew obviously along the time, but that's how that band worked. I really, you know, things were just thrust upon you, and you just had to be ready because, like I said, not everybody could do the gig. Look, a lot of guitar players obviously had the ability to do it, but you had to be able to handle that other stuff that comes with it. And I'm sure you know you've been around that stuff. You understand what that is.
Yeah, but it's not as jazz, you know, as it sounds like you're dealing with. Like you're learning 50 songs because you have no idea what's coming at you from night 1 to night 2 to night 3, and probably the second you feel like I feel pretty comfortable is the night that they go, you know, Locomotive or whatever. Go, oh, damn, which one is that exactly. Now? You know,
or let's open with Coma. And I don't know if I listened to that one. That was a long one.
And you're sitting there with your headphones on, like, oh, God damn. But yeah, no, I think that's part of the interesting thing as well. I mean, the reality is the tsunami you found yourself a part of was such a, you know, the Appetite years are what they are. But not only were you dealing with the biggest chapter of that entire thing as far as like audiences and all that kind of stuff, but also the level of over the top behavior was occurring. And you know, and I think that you know, I always say it's like when you think about how many we've lost over the years, the fact that all 5 of the original guys, including yourself, and including Dizzy, and
it's unbelievable
that they're all still here. They're all,
and that's what I always said when they were going to do the reunion. I was like, the 5 guys are alive. Get them on stage.
I know.
Because I don't know how much more time some of them's got, you know? No, I agree. I felt the same way. Because like you said, it blew your mind that that's intact, but all these other things aren't intact. That's just,
Yeah.
That's karma, man.
I picture you as like Robert Duvall in Apocalypse Now when he's just talking and stuff's blowing up around him, you know, and it's just so like whatever, like it doesn't even notice it because it's just.
That's a pretty good description, Todd. That's pretty good. Because I mean, what are you gonna do? You know, I mean, really, I mean, I always say when I got that gig when I was 30 years old. So I had been through a lot. I had major label record deals. I had played arenas before as an opening band. You know, I had done things. So, you know, I knew some of it. So I was prepared. But like I said, there were curveballs that came along. But once again, the guys made me feel, you know, like a band member. They didn't make me feel like a replacement guitar player. They made me feel like a band member from day one. You know, like, you know, they were all, you know, take a picture, put your picture on the program, all that stuff. They were really good about that kind of stuff. Like I said, to be honest, they really never said anything to me about, you know, like I said, what to do, what to wear, what to play. I mean, Slash never said anything to me. I think it might have been one time where he said, I think you're playing my part, you know, but I mean, that was about it. It's like, I had so much freedom, you know?
Yeah. Well, clearly you were brought in because of who you are. And when I say who you are, but based on the way you look, the way you play.
Yeah.
That otherwise, it's like, you know, they don't want to get somebody and go, now you have to wear this kind of hat or, you know, anything like that. It's just kind of.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
It was seamless, you know. I mean, Slash has talked about it, you know, many times over the years and stuff. He goes, I just don't understand how it was so easy. You know, nobody made a big deal about it. You know, it just kind of, you know, happened. But I mean, it just shows that it worked. It worked at that time. You know?
Yeah, it is funny though, because I don't picture it being the organization where it's like, welcome to the club and here's your watch, you know, or something. It's just kind of like one day you're just kind of in there and you're just in there. Like, it's like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can either handle it or you can't. And believe me, there was a lot of hangers on that couldn't handle it.
I bet. Yeah. Well, and the other thing about it too, is it like, you know, as a fan, speaking as a fan, watching you're entering the thing, you know, a lot of love. Everybody loves Izzy, but everybody understands when a guy like Izzy goes, he stepped aside on his own accord. And I didn't know now. I know now that it was a lot based on his own, you know, he's got to get well and he just can't handle this thing anymore. I totally get it. In a lot of ways, there's more respect for that than a lot of other ways. But I feel like you were embraced right away. Like you were, and you were everybody just accepted you as like, yeah, this is the new guy. He looks amazing. He's great. He brings something special to the team. And we loved what you did.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I do think, you know, once again, you know, Matt paved the way too, you know, by Matt coming in. So people a little bit more acceptable to the change that was happening in the band. But, you know, the most important thing is, and once again, this is no cut to Steven or Izzy. Myself and Matt can't do what they did, you know. Sure. But the musicianship level was getting stronger. You know, Slash was becoming a better guitar player. Duff was playing better. You know, the musicianship, you know, was, you know, it was kind of like Slash used to always say, it's like, this is what I always envisioned, you know, the band sounding like is what it was at that point. You know, which, like I said, for some of us is odd because, you know, that Appetite record is so great in so many ways, you know.
It's so perfect in its own way. That's what's it's kind of weird for me because as a fan, I remember kind of, you know, looking at it and some of my favorite periods of any band, like the Who live at Leeds is the Who to me. When I see the Who later on with, who are all these people? You know,
I didn't need 9 people to do what 4 guys did. I know.
Yeah, but I understand well, there was horns on this record, or there's lots of keys on this record, but I go, yeah, but there was all that shit on the 1969 Tommy album, but they still went up with it as 4 guys. So when the addition of you guys had horns and then Teddy's up there, and then you got backup singers, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, when did this turn into like a massive review? Which you know, it sounded amazing.
People, it confused the real fans, is what it did.
Well, I mean, there's gonna be the street, you know, kind of club like Appetite people, like, whoa, when did this get so polished in a way? But
true.
It still retained. I mean, let's be honest, it was the most dangerous band on the planet, period. Even at its most slick, you know, we still had no idea what was going to happen. Yeah. But was that weird?
It was strange because, like, I'm sure if you asked Slash, his opinion of what he wanted at the time was different from what it was, and most of us felt the same way. I mean, I remember even when all that came in, because same here. I mean, I thought I was joining this, and I'm looking around going, but in the front part where we all were, believe me, you didn't hear the horns, you didn't hear the background. It was still just us, you know. It was just us. It's like that stuff was going out in the front of the house and back there, and some of us really weren't paying attention to it. Although, like I said, look, great players, great performers, no question about it. But some of us liked, you know, what the grit of the band was. You know,
it seems like there's just too damn much money when you can suddenly decide to bring in like another bus full of humans to be on stage, and it's like,
I mean, I spoke with Axl about it because I told him what I thought, and I tried to explain. I go, this band represents so much more than what you think. There are a lot of underdogs out there that this is their band, so when you start doing that, that it's almost showing off, in a way. It's not what your real fans were. Granted, the band wouldn't be as big if it didn't have the people that liked Sweet Child of Mine and November Rain. I get that, but I tried to point that out. But his vision, and I'm not speaking for him, but from what I understood, he wanted to be like the Stones were. The Stone, we're on a stadium stage. We can't be this on this. And that's where he had a vision. Like he had a thing. I want this big. I want us to be the best. I want us to be better than the Stones,
Yeah.
So that's, that's what I got from it.
And I totally understand that. And sort of stepping outside of the, this thing that is two guitars, bass, drums, vocalist, and stepping out and going like, because he was obviously into Queen and
of course,
Elton John and being able to kind of like, and then all of a sudden you've got two keyboard players on stage because there's a lot of things being handled. Teddy's playing amazing harp. Like it's amazing that, isn't it amazing though, the family tree of that band? I mean, even I feel like I'm this one little twig dangling off the end now, but it's so funny to like that, how like Teddy and, we just know everybody.
Roberta, I still talk to all those people, all the time. Teddy just played on my new record. I just did my first live show about 2 weeks ago in St. Louis, and Teddy played with us.
Amazing.
Like I said, it's interesting how that tree, like you said, it branched out, but everybody still is connected.
Yeah, and I think that's the best word for it, is connected. Tell me about that show, because I'm curious. We're going to air this in a few weeks from now. So maybe by then it'll suddenly be like shows are totally normal. But the fact that you're kind of like, unlike I'm talking to like Neil Armstrong here. What's it like playing a show?
What's it like out there?
yeah, exactly.
Did people actually clap?
yeah. Did they show up? Are they like watching on a camera from home? I'm like, how is this working?
We did our first show a couple weeks ago. One was a charity show, and then we did a open to the public show at the same venue, actually the day before. So, but it was limited capacity. It was a 1,000-seat place that they only sold 200 tickets, and we sold all the tickets. It kind of looked like a little Palladium, is what it looked like to me. So they had tables, so it looked good with the people in it. And the only thing that was, I mean, for me, the most part, it was just like a regular show. But you can't do meet and greets.
No.
I mean, even like going to the merch table, you didn't go to the merch table after and all that stuff. You have to take that out of the equation. I found out later that the promoter did sell some VIP seats when I clearly had it in block letters, don't.
Right.
And then you feel guilty, because these people, paid money and stuff. But I only accepted the show because for the most part, 3 of the 4 of us were already vaccinated for a while. I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable traveling, if we hadn't been. So we did take all the precautions, and it's definitely weird. It was an experiment for us. I still don't know if we're ready yet to get out there, because to connect the dots together to really do a tour to, make some income is going to be hard. I still think we're looking at fall.
It's weird because I talked to a friend of mine yesterday, and I'm the optimistic guy. I go, eventually things are going to be okay.
I agree.
And then I have other friends who are like, it's never going to be the same.
That's not true.
It's irrevocably changed. I'm like, I don't believe that to be true. I think the fact that you've played a show and you're one of the first people I know who's actually gone out and played, I'm like, Gilby's doing it. Clearly we can follow. You're beating down the path.
I mean, the way I look at it is, it just like dramatically, like when 9/11 happened, it affected things for a long time. I mean, this is obviously different, but we can take it as, we're all in it together and stuff.
Of course.
I think it's going to be like, before you see somebody wear a mask on an airplane, you kind of chuckled a little and go, come on, you take it a little too seriously. Well, now it's accepted. And I think it's going to be accepted, but I think you're probably going to look at, still 12 people on an airplane that are going to wear it when the curtain comes down. But I there's so many good things that have come out of this, and I choose to look at that. I mean, anywhere you go is so much cleaner than it used to be.
Right?
they finally washed those friggin' planes that we spend every day of our lives in, I mean, they really cleaned them. The airports are clean, restaurants are clean. I mean, I did just come back from Mexico a couple of days ago, and they haven't washed that yet.
Good. I mean, it's nice to know that there's somewhere that's the same. You know what I mean?
Part of the charm.
It's part of the charm.
But I do think that people, because it went on way longer than we all hoped it would, that people are just dying to get back to normal. You know, where
Exactly.
I don't think it's going to linger.
Who's in your band these days? Who did you bring out with you?
My pretty much my touring band over the last 5 years has been Troy Patrick Farrell on drums and EJ Kurse on bass.
Those guys are so good.
We normally play as a 3-piece, but sometimes Teddy comes in and out, you know, play keys. Jim and Deanda has stepped in every now and then to play drums, you know, which when I did the first video for this record, Rock and Roll is Getting Louder, Jimmy played drums in the video. It was Aaron off on the record, but Jimmy played in it. So I do have a couple pieces. Sean McNabb steps in sometimes to play bass. You know, I'm always kind of been more of the weekend warrior kind of guy on my solo stuff. So that's kind of how we always do it. It's who's available.
And the best thing is the power trio is such an easy hang and an easy travel and an easy, you know, I love power trios. It's one of my favorite all-time bands is just that sort of thing. When the guy goes for the solo and you don't have that rhythm guitar, I like that. Slash freaks out about that. He goes,
me too. No, I love it. I love it. I love the challenge. My only thing I don't love about it is being the guy that's singing, playing the solos and talking to the crowd. I don't get a minute. I don't get a second to like, oh, I bumped my pedal, you know, and I got to adjust it. I can't. So we have a little thing where EJ's really good at talking to the audience. I give him a look and he goes into, hey, how you doing? So it gives me a moment, you know.
Of course,
it is a little tricky, but like I said, I like the challenge.
Well, let's talk about the new record because it's like I say, once again, to your credit is the ability to kind of to keep doing what you do. And I think that the new record is another example of like, oh, this is exactly what I want it to be. You know, sure, it gives and goes here and there in different directions and whatnot, but it's exactly what I want it to be. And I think that anybody who loves what you do, which I think most of us do, who's all on it? Who's produced? You produced it yourself, I see.
Yes. So I actually started it quite a few years ago. It's been done for a year plus. The pandemic slowed down the release. You know, we had a couple singles out. But so I started years ago. For me, what's great about a solo record is I don't have to just use one bass player and one drummer. And it's not to say that they can't do it. Of course they can do it. It's just, for me, it's fun. It's fun having different guys add their flavor to it.
Totally.
Like, if it's a driving rock song, I got Kenny Aronoff, you know?
Yeah, I know.
If it's a song that I need a little bounce and a little creativity, I got Stephen Perkins. You know, if I want that swing pocket, I got Matt Starr. You know, so I always start with the drummer. It depends on the song. And once again, all those guys could play every song. We know that.
Of course,
I like to change it up. So Kenny played, like I said, Matt Starr played on quite a few. Troy Patrick Farrell did play. Let me see. I got Jorma Vick, who plays drums with Eagles of Death Metal and was in a band called The Bronx, played. Morgan Young played drums on a couple tracks. Dave Langeth, Canadian. Dave Langeth.
Right.
You know Dave? Dave played.
I know of him. Yeah.
Okay. Well, also our good buddy Sean Kelly played bass on a track.
Oh, he did.
A guitar player. Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
We did some pre-production years and years ago together with Dave, and only one of those tracks made it on the record. But so I kept that. So on bass, I had Muddy played on a track. I had Sean play on quite a few tracks. EJ played. And James Lomenzo played on a track, but it didn't. That song didn't make the record.
Oh, bummer. I love James.
James is fantastic.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And were there keys on the record?
Teddy played all the keys on it. Background vocals, I had Roberta did some background vocals. Matt Starr and Chad Stewart from Faster Pussycat did a lot of backgrounds on it. Nick Frost did some background vocals on it. And who else am I leaving off? I think that's it. Yeah. I don't like to do my own background vocals. I like that tonal change, you know?
I do too.
Yeah, it's not a laziness thing. Like I said, I just like the tonal change, you know, of a different vocal in there. But we tracked a lot of it was, you know, fairly live. Sometimes what I'll do is the drummer and I will track it together and then, you know, we either add or replace and things like that. It was the whole record is pretty much done at my place. I think we did Kenny's drums at his place because it was brand new and he wanted to try it out. So we did it. And but it's all done here. And Nikki Sixx played bass. Oh my God, I forgot.
No way.
Nikki,
did he really?
He did it 50. He brought his 59P bass in and he did a track. Yeah.
He actually came over to play it.
Oh yeah. He came. This was way before COVID. So
right.
You know, we were all, you know, for me, the hardest thing is getting the guys in their scheduling, you know, because summer everybody's out and all that. So just working that out. You know, Todd, I took a different approach on this record because I made a conscious decision of how I wanted it to sound before I started it. And I wanted it to sound like a 70s record, like a Bad Company record, you know?
Totally,
I
yeah.
wanted it punchy and raw. I didn't want to double any, I'm like, you know, triple guitars. I always do a left guitar and a right guitar. I
Right.
always do a Marshall on one side and a Vox AC30 on the other.
Nice.
I don't use any Kempers or any of that. Not that they're not great, they're great. I like live stuff, you know.
Totally.
So that's the way I just wanted it really raw. And like I said, just like those great 70s records, it's like, you know, the bass is never playing what the guitar is playing.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Yeah.
I like I said, that was all thought out in advance. Even writing, I wanted the lyrics to be better. I didn't want you to know the rhyme I was going to, you know,
Cool.
I worked hard on all that stuff, you know. After you've made a few records, you know, inevitably, you know, you start talking about the same stuff, you know, and I don't want to do that. Like, I didn't want to be redundant, you know, I wanted this to be different. Does it sound the same? Absolutely. But I wanted subject matters to be a little bit different. So I did put a lot of work into this and, you know, it'd been a long time since I made a solo record. So I really wanted this one, you know, just to be the best it could at this time.
It shows, I think, you know, and it's, you know, when I say well, it's like the flavor. Like I go to the Gilby Clarke restaurant.
Exactly.
No, I'm gonna get this kind of meal, but the fact that they've put a new spice in this one. Look, it's like, and that's what I like about that kind of thing. I think you're absolutely right. Is that it does have a raw, you know, but like you haven't like you know, sacrificed anything sonically to
exactly. Like, it still sounds like a modern record, as you can put it on, the volume's the same and it's punchier and stuff. But like I said, I always loved those 70s records. Like I said, the guitars were just so clearer, and now everybody's in this like gain war, you know, which I mean, great guitar players that I love and admire, and they have so much gain on their sound now.
It's weird, right?
Most, like I said, that there's no gain on this. It's just like, you know, Angus Young does it, you know, there's no pedals in between. It's that most of the time that left channel is my 59 Les Paul Jr.
Nice.
You know? So I really wanted that stuff to show through, where when I hit the high strings, you heard them, you know.
It's funny when you go back to those old records. I'm not going to keep you much longer because once we get into gear talk, we'll be lost and be like 4 hours later, and then this one, you know. But it is funny when I go back to records, even metal records, or like the original wave of what we would consider hard rock and heavy metal. The tones are always cleaner than you expect. You know, there's something there with the Tony Iommis and Angus Young. You know, those guys like pioneered a whole other thing. Angus Young, you know, but Angus and Malcolm have something special when those two guitars are together. But a lot of those tones are way cleaner than you think. And you bring up an interesting point that as it went along and you could get more gain. Didn't necessarily mean that you should get more gain.
Thank you. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I learned more about this in the GNR years, you know, because when I first started with them, Slash played a Les Paul, Slash played a Marshall. I played a Les Paul, I played a Marshall. Sometimes in the early, when I'd hit a chord, I couldn't tell who did it, you know, and he played with more gain than I did, but still it was like, man. And that's when I went over to the AC30s, you know, because I could, now I can hear myself. I mean, the gain isn't too far different, but I can hear myself. It, you know, that tone of an AC30 has a different mid-range than 100%. A Marshall has. So that really helped me to decide, you know, I could just double Marshall, but when I do it with a Marshall in the Vox, it makes a different sound. When we did the spaghetti incident, if you listen, my guitar is through a 62 Fender Deluxe, all of them.
Wow, really?
Yep, there's not a Marshall, not a Vox. It's all a 62 Deluxe.
Cool.
Which is the amp that Ted Nugent used, like on Stranglehold and Cat Scratch Fever. So
yeah, well, and you're right that in that it kind of like, you would think that two similar tones would make it bigger, but in reality, it sort of gets kind of squishy and they kind of fight each other. Where when you get a different tone, like you were doing, it actually makes for a much wider tone for.
Thank you, and especially in Pro Tools, which Pro Tools already makes you feel like this. You know, it's like you need something to spread it out a little bit. And like I said, you know, we've learned that from experimenting, and you know, but I felt it, like I said, to me, when you hear the record, it does sound wide to me and punchy. So absolutely.
So what's coming up? We'll end on that. What do you have coming up? Because I know.
So what we have coming up, let me see. So we don't have any tour dates. You know, we're still in a holding pattern. That was just an experiment to see how it went. We'll probably have some dates in the fall. You know, we have a streaming show in the can we did for a company called Sessions.
Cool.
We still don't have a release date of it, but we did do it live. You know, we're just waiting for the right release date for it. So that's coming up probably next 2 to 3 weeks. We do have like one Kings of Chaos show like in June or something, so that'll be interesting. We lost a lot of shows last year,
I
man.
know. Do you know what lineup Kings of Chaos is going to be
Yes,
on
I
this
do.
one?
On this show, it is going to be, let me get it right. Matt's not playing because Matt's got a baby due pretty quickly.
Know, it's so crazy. Yeah. So
Kenny Aronoff is on drums,
cool.
James Lemon's on bass, myself and Warren DeMartini on guitars. And then we have Dee Snider, Robin Zander, and Jack Blades on lead vocals.
Wow.
That's going to be fun.
Whoa. So is Jack just singing or is he going to be playing bass?
I think he'll sing and play bass on his songs when he comes in.
Cool. That's really fun.
Yeah.
That's really great. No, I love those. I haven't never seen Kings of Chaos, but the funny story before we go is that we're playing on stage in Milwaukee with the Slash guys. And this is the funniest thing I've ever told you.
I got to hear your version of it.
We're playing and I swear I start to smell smoke. Like it didn't smell like cigarette smoke. And I was kind of like, that's weird. In this old theater, I'm like, uh-oh, you know, and we kind of looked around and I remember looking over to my right and just seeing this line of like,
I know all those guys.
Well, I couldn't see anybody. All I saw was the red cigars.
Oh, like, gotcha.
Kind of, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And it just seemed like there was a ton of people over on my side of the stage.
Yeah.
And then as the kind of lights were changing, I go, it was you and Ace Frehley and Sebastian, Warren DeMartini, Lomenzo was there, and Matt Sorum, of course. And I was like, what the, like, no one said anything about you guys being there. Just like everybody's there. Like, you know, it's like so surreal. And then we hung out. It was really fun. It was a blast.
It was really fun. We were at dinner and we kind of finished early and stuff. And Matt goes, what are you doing? I go, well, you know, Slash is playing across the street. And literally was like, and everybody goes, I'll go. And they literally followed me across the street.
Amazing. So what, did you just knock on the door? Or did you text somebody?
Yeah. Well, you know, Ace has a way of just kind of like not really knocking. He just kind of walks in, you know.
Well, he says Frehley. Everybody goes like right this way. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's amazing. Yeah. That must be a blast playing with guys like Ace.
I mean, to me, this is icing on the cake. You know, I'm so, you know, happy Matt includes me in this because, I mean, you know, for me, Robin Zander, you know, is just,
that's
you know, I mean, I'm in heaven, you know, Billy Gibbons, you know, everybody, Dee Snider is a monster on vocals.
He really is.
It's just great. And I don't, you know, I never played covers in my life. You know, I never was that guy that learned covers. So when we have to learn these songs, like the Rat songs and stuff, it's like I grow an appreciation for it. Going, wow. Yeah, that's why that's such a good song.
Yeah. They're no joke, those songs. That's for sure. Yeah, everybody could kind of look down their nose at these things. They're like, "Well, you try and play it. It's not. It's no joke.
You try and make that stretch that is."
There's these weird, like, you know.
I always go, Warren, I'm going to play it like this.
I would do the same thing. Yeah, I'll be doing the. What would Johnny Ramone play in this song? That's what I'd be saying.
I had to sell it to him like this. Well, you know, in the MC5, one plays low and one plays high. So how about if I do this? And it worked.
I could. The MC5 is a whole other chapter because I've got. You probably can't see it, but I've got the Wayne Kramer Strat over there.
Oh God!
And I'm like, when you started playing the MC5, I was like, damn, dude. He's like, is there anything you haven't done that's like amazing? Like, you know, playing in Hearts, playing in MC5, Guns N' Roses, getting to be on
Nancy
stage.
Sinatra.
And Nancy Sinatra, get out of here. Like, that's crazy. Wow. Amazing. Well, you're going to have a hell of an epitaph someday.
I know.
Way down the line. Well, I'm excited to cross paths whenever the hell that is. I'm, you know, we're all running around. My whole world is behind the scenes recording, all that kind of stuff. But eventually.
But I heard that Vegas is open for the most part. Is that not true? Or
it's opening in June. But
gotcha.
I don't know what that means for shows. I mean, probably locally things are happening. I know that they're talking about Cirque du Soleil and things like that are starting to power up, and I assume behind that will be, you know, Cher or something like that will appear, and it'll be as if nothing happened. Knock on wood, you know.
I know. But like I said, at least everything will be clean when we come back.
Exactly, it's going to be so clean we won't even. It'll be like humans never existed. Awesome, man. Well, I really look forward to the future. I wanted to get into your daughter's band is amazing, and
thank you.
I asked Frankie to be on here one day, so one day I'm going to hassle her to come on, and it's such a
sausage
new single. Party.
She's got a new single coming out soon. It's they're just doing the video for it, so that might be a good time. Yeah,
she's super talented, amazing, man.
Awesome, dude. Well, good luck with everything. I'm really excited about the album, and I'm really excited that we get to hopefully cross paths sooner than later. Hopefully.
Yeah, you got it. I'll be the call. You guys are playing tonight? Yeah, I'm gonna come down.
Exactly. Or bring Ace Frehley. He gets doors open.
Exactly. Thanks, Todd. Thanks for asking me, man. You're doing a great
Anytime,
job.
man. 100% my pleasure. Big love. Okay, man. Take care.
Brother.